Well, we're trying to get to the point where we can show you my screen. I prepared 4 or 5 slides for you to help you remember. This is being recorded, and so we will try to post it somewhere where people can get to it. What we're going to be talking about is the research needs statements that the Alaska Department of Transportation has open. It's important to recognize that they only do this every 2 years. So if you miss this opportunity, it'll be 2 years before you get another opportunity to participate in the research program. So it's important that if you want to do something that you do it and make all the deadlines. The deadline for getting a research needs statement in is March 1st, which is coming up fairly quickly, but these research needs statements don't take very long for you to put together. They really are really putting forth the idea and an estimated budget of what that's going to take. So it's pretty straightforward in being able to do that. It's also important to recognize that the department requires a champion from within the department to champion your idea. So you really, it's kind of a 2-step process for you. You first must sell someone within the department that your idea is good, to the point that they're willing to take that and argue your case before the research board at DOT. We can't argue for our own, but someone will argue that on your behalf. And so that's the reason you need to create a champion. I will say that it's best if you have already been working with someone over the last year or so, because you have a much better relationship. With DOT, like many organizations, it's much about the relationships that you have with those folks as it is how good your idea is. So it's just part and parcel to what we're doing. The other thing to recognize is just because you put it in the idea does not guarantee you that you will get the work. So if you are one of those folks that feels that you want to maintain that proprietary nature of that, this might not be the best place for you to seek that funding. So just be aware that that DOT has the right, and it says it in their procedures manual, and I think it says it on the form, that they have the right to go seek out that expertise anywhere that they choose. Most of the time, it does end up in the hands of the person who had the idea, but not always. And I will say that the department is really high on the university. They really want to use the expertise that the university has. And as Elmer Marks, one of the senior bridge designers at DOT, told me the other day, he says 50% of the value of the research project to them is student involvement, because they are always looking to hire our students, and they feel that the students who have survived within Alaska are that they are, when they go to work for it, they're going to stay with them, with the department. So that's just something to recognize and understand. So if you got a student involved, that's oftentimes better. Okay, I'm supposed to have access to the screen. Let's try it. Okay, so I don't want that one. Let's try that. Okay, everybody see that okay? Okay.
Looks great.
I'm not going to start over, but I'll kind of go through the slides. One of the things I really like about this picture, it gives you some idea of the breadth and scope of what the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities does. You see a bridge here. They've got probably 300 to 400 bridges in the bridge inventory, including this one, the Yukon River Bridge, which we're all familiar with. You also see the Yukon River below. They do a lot of hydrology work in there. You can see the road up above. That one happens to be somewhat paved. It's got high float on it, so they're interested in the roadway geometrics, alignments, the materials required to produce that roadway, all of those kinds of things. And then at the center right of this photo, you see a landslide, which this one happens to be due to the thawing of the permafrost in that area, which caused that slide to happen. And we can argue whether or not that's climate change or not, but if you look along this bluff, all up and down it, that's been going on for centuries. There are a lot of old slides that are there. This is a summary slide of what I was just going through, research needs statements. They are for the fiscal year 23 and 24. The money will become available around November of 2022, but the research needs statements that are selected will be going through 23 and 24. Some of them will actually start in October or November of 2024 or 2023. So it's a 2-year program. So they'll split the projects along those boundaries. The research needs statement can be found at the link shown there. You can also just go in and Google Alaska Department of Transportation Public Facilities research section, and you can find it that way as well. And I've already mentioned the champion, and if you don't have a champion over there, take a few minutes, give me a shout, and we'll talk about your project and figure out who might be that champion. DOT really focuses on projects that can be readily applied. DOT is very much a process-oriented organization. They have to follow a number of different rules. They've got lots of manuals that they work with. They have lots of procedures and processes, and their designers are judged by 3 things: scope, schedule, and budget. And did they meet those 3 items? Construction or design by whether or not that they built the road and they stayed within the budget to the greatest extent, recognizing that there are reasons for overruns. In fact, the average project typically overruns about 11% over time. So they're really looking for things that projects that can be implemented into those guidelines, procedures, manuals, and all of those kinds of things. So it's really important that any project that you put forward, that you think about how that's going to be implemented, because I guarantee you, that's one of the questions that are going to come up before the board is the champion is going to be asked, how will this be implemented? So they've got to be able to answer that question. Typically, the projects are 2 years in duration, and typically they cost under $250,000. That's not cast in stone, but it's pretty much, it's been the general trend over the last few years. Actually, that number's gone up a little bit as far as cost goes. It's creeped up a little bit. But that doesn't mean that you can't phase a project. You can do a phase 1 and a phase 2, and that's perfectly acceptable. But you just need to work with your champion and see what they think that they can sell. And I will open it up to questions here shortly. Some of the projects that we've seen in the last 4 years or so that have been funded by DOT, use of recycled asphalt in pavements in Alaska, and as is almost all states in the U.S. at this point in time, asphalt is recycled in some form 100%. So it's probably the most recycled product out there. So how to use that in our roadways is a critical need, and they recognize that and are funding it. Implementation of remote weather information systems. They're using that kind of information to make decisions about their maintenance activities. They use it to make decisions about their design processes, and they also put it out to the public, who can make decisions on whether or not to travel due to inclement weather or not. I know a lot of people use the one, for example, at Summit near Cantwell, to decide whether they're going to go out for the weekend in a snow machine. Construction of roads on airports and permafrost. Synthesis of practice, one that I just recently completed. And the intent there was to provide their design staff and their maintenance staff and construction staff with the current practices of building roads and airports on the permafrost. And it's been a pretty popular thing. Again, going back to the manuals and processes and specifications requirement. Improvements in grouts, testing of grouts. They were having problems with that, and Ilson did a project on that, and basically what he came up with was that they just needed better training. So we produced a set of videos for them and a training manual so that they can train their people how to test grouts more effectively. When it comes to bridges, seismic design is always a big one, and seismic design and soil structure interaction with permafrost is always a big one. So there's been a lot of work and continues to be a lot of work in that area. Margaret's been very successful in studying the frozen debris lobe, because it's it's attacking the roads and also is attacking the pipeline. So people are very interested in that. I just spent some time with Mike Knapp, who is the state hydraulics engineer, and they are very interested in the use of drones to evaluate off ice. They funded a study for that, and now they're looking at how they might be able to implement that. You know, Alaska, about 40% of Alaska's roads are gravel, or we call them unbound surfaces. So they were looking at the efficacy of dust palliatives on that, and that's going on not only the state maintained, but also the roadways and streets of our villages. It's been a very popular project. One that we're working on right now is the monitoring and prediction of avalanches in Adigan Pass using weather information. The remote weather information project that we noted below, we're piggybacking on that, and the use of UAVs to fly up to the avalanche zones and take a closer look at it. Depending on the success of that project, that may be implemented in a number of different sites, including Thompson Pass and down around Turnagain Arm and up at other places that have avalanche issues. Some of the projects that I've been, or areas where DOT is interested, that I've been able to glean from my discussions with some of the folks over there. Safety and mobility is always an issue. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, that's an interest. Certainly that is always an interest. The hydraulics manual, which I participated in writing way back in around 1990, is up to be rewritten, and they're looking at that. So, you know, if there's hydraulics issues you want to look at that may be able to be implemented into that manual, that would certainly be of interest. Tsunamis, and especially coastal erosion, is a big issue that DOT is facing. And they're struggling to figure out exactly, one, how to predict where those things are going to occur, when they might occur, and the severity of the things that might be popping up in that and related to that. Also, improvements in prediction of runoff in larger river basins. They feel pretty comfortable with the smaller river basins, but the larger ones, they don't feel like the predictive models that they have are as good as they would like to see. Always climate change, including prediction techniques. How do you integrate climate change and those predictions into the design process? There are no standards. There's really no guidance as to how they do that. And so they're, DOT is very interested in understanding all of that and how it applies to their design process. So that's a great one for somebody to possibly pick up and do something with. Certainly improved techniques of maintaining and construction of roads and airports on permafrost. I know if you go up to 9 Mile on the Richardson, there are open cracks, and the maintenance folks call those hell holes because they can pour as much material as they want down in there, and they come back a few days later and the hole's back there, and it's just due to melting ice wedges through that area. So those are all issues that they're trying to face. Anything that has to do with materials in roadways is always of interest to them. In fact, over the years, that's been one of the highest rated projects in there. A growing area is in the area of intelligent transportation system, including connected and autonomous vehicles. And what does the state of Alaska need to do in order to prepare our roadways for those? They're less interested in the vehicles themselves, but what they are interested is in the infrastructure required to support those types of vehicles as they come into the fleet. Snow and ice control, again, is another one. We all are still being impacted by the last freezing rain. Those occurrences of freezing rain are increasing. The number of heavy snowfalls is increasing through the state. So maintenance is being forced to deal with those, and they're being forced to deal with those without any increases in their budgets. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's intended to provide you with some idea of what kinds of projects that they're looking at. Again, they're looking not for basic types of research. They're looking for research that they can integrate into their working environment and integrate into their processes, including their manuals, their specifications especially, is very useful to them. And they would like to be able to do that on a fairly rapid basis, something on the order of 2 years or so. Sometimes it takes a lot longer to get it implemented, but that's what they target. So with that, if you know somebody that, or if you know someone that you've been working with DOT, feel free to contact them and work with them to put together your research needs statement. If not, give me a call. We can talk about it, and I can, if we feel like that your idea is worth moving forward, we can certainly connect you with the right person to have that discussion. And they may, or that person may or may not be willing to take that on, but at least we'll get you started in the right direction. And if you're not sure, give me a shout. I'll give you feedback as to whether your idea may or may not be appropriate for this funding opportunity. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Hey, Billy, could you show us that URL again? I'm having a little trouble pulling it up, and it would help to see it again.
Okay, right there.
STWDDES. I'm getting an error message on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wonder if you changed it on you.
Okay, I'll get with you and we'll get it straight out. But it looks right. Okay, we'll get that squared away.
Okay. And
I'll show you how to get there.
Because I was messing about looking for that, I missed. Did you tell us where to find the usual format that DOT likes to have for these?
I can't say that again.
did you, is there, DOT used to have a format, like a template that they wanted to see these in? Do we still have one of those?
Well, that link is to the research needs form that
Okay.
is the official way of submitting those. So I'll get with you and we'll get that downloaded and maybe just send it out directly.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, sure. Does anybody else have any questions? I'll stop sharing my screen. Well, maybe I should continue in case somebody has a question. I need to go back. Any questions that I can answer for you?
If the project you're thinking of is probably significantly less than $250,000, is that still competitive, or are you looking for projects of that sort of scope?
That's kind of been the traditional maximum. Anything less than $50,000 generally, it's generally tough because the scope is not large enough to really capture the interest. They do have other sources of funding, including something that's called, it's the, oh, my mind's going, experimental features program that you can work with. Sometimes they have a rapid response program that can do the under $50,000 stuff, but you know, $50,000, especially with DOT, we have a 25% overhead, so that gets that down. But you start getting those low dollars, you can't really do much. So, you know, that's not a firm absolute value, but that's just generally what we see. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm guessing that with, university overhead and everything coming in at 50,000 probably isn't too hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to bring you down to, 40,000 or so, 35,000. But by the time you get the overhead on, yeah, it's just, it's not, that's hardly worth getting out of bed for.
Well, that is a good question, though. What is the F&A rate that applies since this is a state agency?
25%, and that it was negotiated between the university and the Department of Administration. So it's not just DOT, it's all state agencies. Anything else? I guess I did a pretty good job of answering your questions as I went along.
I think you did. So if anybody, definitely go to Billy first. But as he said, it's a really good idea to kind of have your budget worked out. So if we can help with that, we'll be glad to help. Just give me a call or send me an email.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me. I meant to say that, Sandra. You really need to have that budget reasonably close before you send it over to them, because once that goes in, it sticks in people's mind, and DOT is death on scope, schedule, and budget. So that budget is really important that you get pretty darn close at the beginning, because they're going to select the number of projects based on the available budget. And if you suddenly come in with a value 50% more, that's not going to set well, because that's going to kick somebody else out, or you may be at the top and you may get kicked out. So get with Sandra and make sure that you're in the right ballpark.
So we don't have to run that budget through OGCA yet, but we should hear for you if they're due on March the 1st. You should be working with Joan or me a week before that at the latest.
Our match is not required, but encouraged. So it's what I do sometimes. I take some of my university transportation funds and I mix it with DOTs, and that goes over pretty well, but it is not required.
And so if it's not required, the match could come from federal or any source?
Yeah, yeah,
Like if you're saying that, as primary researcher, you've got so much of your time for this project taken care of and you're hiring students, et cetera, that sort of thing.
absolutely. In fact, I often will take a project that I'm working on and then propose it to DOT with some extensions to focus directly on them. And that way I'm leveraging what I'm already doing. Or sometimes I will take Alaska DOT's work and leverage another project somewhere else to make it work. So that's encouraged. Did I answer your question, Michelle?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Hi, hello, Billy. Thanks so much for the explanation. I have a quick question. So for the previous funded project, is there any place to find the abstract of this project?
That work has been done by DOT.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you can go to the DOT research webpage.
Uh-huh.
And on that webpage is a search engine that will search every research project DOT has ever done, all the way
Okay.
back to the 1950s, and look at that. The other place to go is to trb.org, and
Okay.
you can go, and trb.org has something called RDIS, Research Dissemination Information System.
Uh-huh.
And you can go in there and search that engine, which has close to a million entries into it. And not only do you get those research projects for Alaska, but you get it for the entire nation.
Okay, okay. Thanks so much.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you for being here. As I said, we'll try to figure out how to post the session up online so that others can take advantage of it, or you can go back and review it. If you have any questions that come up, give me a shout. I'll be happy to answer those. But you need to get on them very quickly. And it's really not that hard to put one together. I've got 3 of them to put together in the next week. So please do so.
Billy, I'll add that your URL is correct. I finally got it to come up. I don't know what the deal was, but I just posted it to the chat. Sorry.
Okay, I was going to come up and help you, but if you got it, great. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll tell you to all have a great weekend, and we'll be seeing and hearing from you soon, I hope.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Billy. Have a good
Very
weekend.
informative. Yeah.